So you want to know about the history of Ireland? Okay, let's do this. Sure, these islands were first inhabited by humans around 14,500 years ago. But when we start hearing about Ireland, it's during the time of the Roman Empire. The Romans didn't actually invade or conquer Ireland. They had enough trouble keeping their own provinces in check. But they did have some contact with the Irish along the coast, where the locals traded things like slaves and tin. And there was even a brief period where the Romans actually occupied Ireland. In 43 AD, the Roman emperor was like, hey, let's take over these islands and see what the fuss is all about. They established a province called Hibernia. It lasted only 3 years before the locals revolted and killed all the Romans except one guy, who then rowed away in a boat. To tell the emperor that he should really probably not try to invade Ireland again, so the Romans were like, okay, fair enough, you guys win, and they left. Next up, it's the 5th century, and we're talking about St. Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland. According to legend, Patrick came to Ireland at the behest of God, and spent his time here driving snakes out of the country and teaching people about Christianity. There's no evidence that snakes ever lived in Ireland, but there is evidence that Patrick successfully converted a lot of people to Christianity. The next big thing to hit Ireland was the Viking Age, which lasted from the 8th to the 11th century. And yes, Vikings attacked Ireland, but they also settled down and made it their home. A great example of this is the town of Dublin, which was founded by Vikings. During the Viking Age, Ireland was pretty decentralized. You had different kings ruling different territories, and they often fought each other. And there was also a lot of fighting between the Irish and the Vikings. But as the Viking Age drew to a close, more and more Scandinavian people started settling down in Ireland, intermarrying with the local population and converting to Christianity. In the meantime, England was going through its own thing. William the Conqueror had invaded and established Norman rule. The Anglo-Normans built a lot of stone castles in Ireland, but they never really took over the whole country. Ireland remained divided into several independent kingdoms. For the rest of the Middle Ages, you had the Anglo-Normans over here in the east, and the Gaelic Irish over here in the west. They kept fighting each other for land, but they also traded and cooperated. Because in the 13th century, the Anglo-Normans invited English soldiers over to help them fight the Irish, which obviously went about as well as you'd expect when you invite somebody over to help you fight your war, and they just decide to take your stuff instead. English king was like, what are you guys doing? The English soldiers were like, well, now we're in charge. And so in 1295, King Edward I of England officially took over Ireland and made it a part of the British monarchy. But it wasn't all bad news, because during the next century, Ireland got a representative in Parliament, although they weren't allowed to speak in it. And in 1494, Henry VIII broke off a piece of Ireland and gave it to his younger brother as the first Duke of Surrey. Now fast forward to the 18th century, and we have Oliver Cromwell to thank for most of Ireland being absolutely knackered. See, Ireland wasn't the only place where people wanted to establish a Protestant state. So after the English Civil War, Oliver Cromwell led an army to Ireland to fight the Catholics, and he basically slaughtered every single one of them. In 1649, the Irish Parliament had declared itself in favor of a Catholic king, so Cromwell had to put an end to that. After capturing Dublin, he executed over 3,500 Irish soldiers and civilians, including 5 of the 7 members of the Irish Parliament. His most infamous massacre took place in the town of Drogheda, where he gave the townspeople an ultimatum: convert to Protestantism or die. Most of them chose death. He also burned down the town and slaughtered anyone who tried to flee. Yeah, but don't worry, because in 1660, following the restoration of the monarchy, the Irish were allowed to elect 2 members of Parliament. And in 1661, they passed the penal laws, which were basically designed to keep Catholics out of public life. Under these laws, Catholics couldn't vote or hold public office. They couldn't serve in the military, and they couldn't even become priests. Without getting the permission of the government, the penal laws remained in effect until 1778, which is why there aren't many Catholics in positions of power in Ireland today. It's like, oh wait, never mind. This isn't 1778. This is 2023, and Ireland has a president who's a Catholic woman. So never mind. In the meantime, the potato had arrived in Europe via the Americas, and somehow everyone decided it was a good idea to grow it in Ireland. The potato is a very starchy tuber that can survive in cold climates, which made it perfect for Ireland. Problem? was that it didn't really provide enough nutrition to keep the Irish people healthy and happy. Also, during the 1840s, there was a potato blight that basically destroyed all the potatoes in Ireland, which meant that millions of people were left starving, while at the same time, landlords were charging higher rents than ever. People started to get really desperate, and a lot of them fled to the United States. Between 1846 and 1851, more than 1 million people left Ireland, either to die at sea or to live in poverty in America. Back in Ireland, you had people rising up against their landlords, and the British government was responding with brutal force. By 1848, the unrest in Ireland had become so bad that the British government had to suspend habeas corpus. That way they could arrest people without charging them with a crime. The last time Britain had suspended habeas corpus was during the English Civil War. As the 19th century wore on, things got a little bit better for the Irish. But they still couldn't vote, and they still weren't allowed to own any land. Finally, in 1919, the Irish decided they'd had enough, and they launched a war against the British. The War of Independence ended in 1921 with the Anglo-Irish Treaty, which created the Irish Free State in the south and left the 6 counties in the north to be a part of the United Kingdom. This treaty didn't go over too well in Ireland. Some people thought it was too much of a compromise. Others thought it didn't compromise enough. One of those people was a guy named Michael Collins, who'd been a leader of the Irish war effort. He tried to negotiate peace with the British, but then when that failed, he took up arms against them. He was eventually killed in a battle with British forces and buried in an unmarked grave. Later on, his body was disinterred so that his family could bury him properly, except they didn't know where his original grave was, so they had to open up the wrong grave. Even then, they weren't sure if they had the right body. Eventually, though, they figured it out, and they put the right body in the right grave. Then in 1932, Ireland became a fully independent republic. In World War II, Ireland remained neutral, which made it kind of awkward for them when the British asked if they could set up a military base in Ireland. They agreed, but only under the condition that the base would be used solely for anti-submarine warfare. At the end of the war, the Irish quickly changed their tune and demanded that the British leave their country. The British were like, sure, whatever. And they did. Since then, Ireland has become known for its lush green landscapes, its beautiful Celtic art, its heavy drinking, and its fighting. Oh wait, no, scratch that last one. Ireland is now known for its beautiful Celtic art, its heavy drinking, and its neutrality. It joined the UN in 1955, the EEC in 1973, and the Eurozone in 1999. And since 2004, it's been part of the Schengen Agreement, which allows people to travel freely across most of Europe. Today, the Republic of Ireland has a population of about 5 million people, and the Northern Ireland has a population of about 1.9 million people. Northern Ireland is still a part of the United Kingdom, and the Republic of Ireland is an independent country. Even though they share an island, the two countries are very different. Their history together has been marked by war, famine, occupation, and independence. These days, the relationship between the two countries is pretty good. They have a lot of trade and investment with each other, and they both belong to the United Kingdom. Well, one of them belongs to the United Kingdom, and the other one doesn't. I mean, the United Kingdom is like a loose association of countries and not technically a political entity. Okay, thanks for watching. Until the next time.